I'm looking down the road at history, at legacy, at changing the way future generations think and believe and what they're exposed to, and giving them a good example so that they can go out to be adults and say, look at Marc Emery, he spent his whole life fighting for freedom, and I never saw him do anything but smile and tell the truth, and I seemed to enjoy so much what he's doing. And here's what I learned, too, when I was in Saskatchewan, 2004, is while I was there, a guy named Jonathan Magby was in court in Washington, D.C. And he's quadriplegic. He's a little like my friend who died today, Marilyn Holston, but he can only move his neck. He was always in a wheelchair. He had a back brace on, and he needed, of course, a lot of metal crutches and things to even stand up straight. So he didn't stand up straight much. He was always in a wheelchair. And one day he's a passenger in a van, and the cops pull over the vehicle, as they often do if you're black in the United States, and they found he had a bag of weed, 30 grams under his seat, 1 ounce of weed. So he got charged with marijuana possession. Well, he comes before the court of a Judge Retchin, R-E-T-C-H-I-N, you can look it up. And she said, I hope from this experience that you've learned that you shouldn't be smoking marijuana. And he said, well, actually, Your Honor, if I didn't smoke marijuana, I would probably kill myself if I could, because I don't think my quality of life would be worth living. He said, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm in a wheelchair. I'm permanently disabled. I had a terrible, violent car accident when I was 4, a child. And in fact, Ronald Reagan is seen posing with the same child when he's 10 years old. How remarkable he's recovering, even though he's permanently disabled. He was smiling. And Ronald Reagan needed to pose as some black person so he could go to the black community and say, I don't hate y'all. Found one crippled up black kid I like. Right? So, you gotta love me now, right? So there's a famous picture of this young fellow named Jonathan Magby when he's 10 with Ronald Reagan. Well, fast forward 12 more years, right, to 2004, and thanks to Ronald Reagan's war on drugs, the situation is now entirely different. He's before the court and says, no, my life would be worse if I didn't smoke marijuana, Your Honor, so I think I have to tell you, I have no choice but to tell you I'm going to keep smoking marijuana. And she said, well, you're not getting the message of this court, young man, so I'm sentencing you to 10 days in jail. And he died on day 5 in jail, because nobody knew what the fuck to do with all the tubes that were coming in and out of his body. Nobody was there to help him. And the family couldn't even get him out of jail in that time after being sentenced. He died there. Died there, sent to jail. I mean, what kind of monsters are putting people in jail who are quadriplegic only to see him die? What kind of heartless, sensitive people would do that? Right? And only 3 years ago at the University of Tallahassee, a young man was a bicycle weed delivery guy, and he delivered 4 ounces of weed to someone who called him on his cell phone. And it turns out it had been an undercover cop who got his number. So he delivers the 4 grams to an undercover cop. The undercover cop arrests him, puts him in jail over the weekend, awaiting bail. And that young man was raped at knife point by a serial sexual predator, and that boy has never been the same since. Doesn't walk around, doesn't ride a bicycle, doesn't go anywhere, dropped right out of university. His life is ruined, all because some undercover agent put him in a cell overnight. And then he got raped. And then he got his life ruined. And it happens all the time. You can put the word rape, marijuana, and jail in, and you're going to find lots of examples. Put it in marijuana, jail, death. You're going to find people who died in jail for just as little as 2 grams of pot. Rachel Hoffman's another good example. We got dozens and dozens and dozens of them because it happens every fucking day because not enough people care to do something about it. That's what I'm trying to impress upon you. You've got a mission in your life. My mission all my life has been to seek the truth, speak out on behalf of justice, and damn the consequences of it. And that's what I want you to do too. Rachel Hoffman was a young woman in Georgia, was it, or Florida? Florida. Well, she got caught with a bit of pot on her. So the cop said, well, we could charge you with trafficking because you're going to sell to your friends, but we want you to do a favor for us and we'll overlook it. And she said, okay, what do you want me to do? Well, we want you to go sell some cocaine to 2 big black guys we know who were trying to entrap. And sure enough, she followed their orders and they murdered her that night when they found a wire on her. They found her being a snitch and they killed her right then and there. All because she had a few grams of pot she was going to sell to her friends, and next thing you know, she's dead. The cops are fucking vicious motherfuckers, and they don't care about you at all. If a cop ever does anything nice to you, it's purely by accident. Everything you say can and will be used against you in or out of a court of law. I know, because I spent 3 fucking months in Saskatoon Correctional for passing a joint to a consenting adult, and nobody had to even see it, and I ended up in jail. You can end up in jail whenever a cop wants you. I was watching the news only last week. Cops were filmed by their own camera in their own police cars planting drugs on a guy. They are so arrogant they forget they're recording themselves when they do their fucking nasty bullshit work to put people in. Why would a cop plant drugs on anybody if the only reason possible is to ruin their lives? And that is the only reason. Think of the kind of people that we must recruit to be police officers. Think of the kind of training. They used to train the RCMP officers here in Regina. They may still do. Do you have your school here still? Yeah. Well, I read a book called Making Mounties, how that training school works. And one thing I do know, and that's why RCMP are always first to whip out the pepper spray or taser your ass into the ground and kill you, is because they're taught. They're not there to discuss it. They're not there to negotiate it. You either submit now or you will submit by force immediately. That's how they're taught here in Regina. That's what kind of people get. Barry Cooper, a Texas narcotic cop who's turned good after he was being real bad as a cop, told me that the reason he became a job is he couldn't believe that it only took 10 weeks of training before he was given a gun and the right to put it up to someone's head. He said he couldn't believe all that power he got in just 10 weeks of training. After that, he could go around with a gun and arrest people and put it up to their head and say anything he wanted. He got such a rush kicking down doors and terrifying kids while he arrested their parents at gunpoint, screaming his head off. He said it was a big fucking rush to him. And he said, I grew up a drunk. I grew up with drinkers. We were all made to despise the pot people. We were propagandized in Texas to despise pot people. And he said, and I realized after drinking and being a cop for 10 years that I was a loathsome, disgusting individual. And he says, and I've been trying to change my life and reverse everything I ever did ever since. Cops know they're evil. Cops know it. That's why they became cops. Who, when they're 7, 8 years old, is saying, I want to go around with motherfucking black boots on, with a taser, with a truncheon, with pepper spray, with a fucking gun, wearing a Kevlar jacket, kicking the ass of 19-year-old kids smoking a joint. What kind of person thinks like that? That's right. Those are the kind of people who are recruited police officers. Those are the kind of people attracted to it. That's what we're up against. People who are getting off on ruining people's lives. That's all cops do. That's all they do. That's their #1 mandate, to fuck you up and remind you that they're in charge and you are not. You're here to do what they tell you to do. And who are these people? They got grade 12 education and they went to a paramilitary school for about a year. And then they're out there telling you how the fuck it's going to be. Despite all the evidence, despite all the knowledge, despite everything you know, despite everything this country's supposed to be about. Democracy, diversity, tolerance, and peace. Yeah, that's true for me and you. It's not true for them. And remember that. I'm going to jail for 5 years. I want you to get me back here. If I get back to Canada on a prison transfer, which, as my wife said, used to be automatic, right? But now the Conservative government's in, the religious fundamentalists are in government, and they're all elected by places like Regina. I hate to tell you that, but it's the Midwest, it's British Columbia where I'm from, it's Alberta, and it's Saskatchewan, it's Manitoba that's given us the fascist motherfuckers that are in Ottawa now that are trying to fuck with us and put us in jail, and you gotta do something about it, because I do know this. Old people, over 55, 80% of them go to vote. Probably is even higher than 80%. And the pot people, I know for sure, most of you in this room did not even vote in the last election, and it's killing us. It's totally killing us. Pot people don't vote. Sure, it's, as my wife says, it's a cynical, stabby business. Sleazy business, but we've got to do it out of self-defense. We've got to run for office, we've got to get out and vote, and we've got to browbeat our friends into getting out and voting too. Got to get them to vote. And as long as you vote for someone that's not the Conservative Party, it's all a win-win.